And now the good news. Are you ready? It's the first day of summer. How do you feel about that? It's pretty awesome, isn't it? Well, I'm so excited to be with you again today. I'm Barbara Jean. I'm your host of And Now the Good News. So I'm really excited that we could be here and share some really great stories tonight. We're very fortunate to have these stories. So the first one is just like unbelievable, shall we say. So powerlifting is to debut at the US Senior Games, and there's an 82-year-old grandmother. Yes, Faith O'Reilly is lifting her best life. The Coloradian is currently the oldest enlisted female participant in powerlifting at the 2025 National Senior Games, which will feature O'Reilly's forte for the first time in its history. Uh, the Good News Network, which we get lots of our stories from, has regularly reported on the life stories of silver lifters and the perseverance they demonstrate with an activity most assumed to be limited to one's youth. Well, that was when O'Reilly took up powerlifting in law school at the University of Iowa. I was watching it and thought, well, I can do that, she said of the first experience, reflecting a can do attitude she maintained all her life. That confidence blossomed into a capability that saw her win multiple Iowa State championships as she lifted the double burden of weights in school, graduating and going on to teach undergraduate level legal studies and paralegal work in the criminal justice field. After retiring and moving to a tiny Colorado town from her native Iowa, she took up powerlifting again in 2007 and would recommend it to anyone. It's overall good for you physically, and as you age, you can have problems with bone density and losing muscle tone. And she said, according to an article in the National Senior Games Association, where she took a gold medal in the 2023 women's triathlon relay for the 75 and older bracket in Pittsburgh, which she did with her younger sister and close friend as a team. It's really fun to see and interact with other people who are enjoying being more fit than the rest of our age group. She says, the oldest person who competed in Pittsburgh was 103. So that gives her a goal. Wow. Can you imagine? I think sometimes we believe that as you age, you get old and decrepit, but I'll tell you, definitely not Faith O'Reilly. All right. A hero Air India pilot saved dozens of lives with last second decision before a crash. Rarely is there good news to be found amid the wreckage of a crashed plane, but from the Air India flight, which recently went down, a ray of positivity emerges. The crash claimed 241 souls on board, but it could have been dozens, perhaps hundreds more on the ground, based on the last-minute heroics of the pilot, Samit Sabharwal. Eyewitness reports speaking to The Sun in the UK saw that Sabharwal diverted the doomed Boeing 787 from crashing into an apartment building among the last seconds before impact. Thanks to the pilot, we survived. He's a hero. It's because of him we are alive, said John V. Jackput, 28, whose home narrowly escaped destruction. The green space next to us was visible to him, and that's where he went. If the plane had crashed into this residential area, there would have been hundreds more victims. Suffering from a catastrophic engine failure shortly after takeoff, 55-year-old captain, whose colleagues describe as a good, quiet person, took the jet into the top two floors of a disused 4-story military building adjacent to a medical college hostel building. That impact and the subsequent immolation of 90 tons of jet fuel added to the casualty list from the passengers on the plane, among whom only a single man survived. Control tower footage shows that the experienced Sabharwal had less than 10 seconds to see the apartment and the empty building next to it as the plane lost engine power shortly after takeoff from the runway. The nose was still pointing up when the plane impacted on a glide path. 18 families lived in the apartment building, all of whom survived because of the decision Sabharwal made. In the aftermath, the Tata Group, which owns Air India, followed Montreal Convention protocol and extended a death benefit of $120,000 to each of the families who lost a loved one on the plane and on the ground, before announcing they would fund the reconstruction of the medical hospital. Air India retired the flight number 171, and an investigation into the malfunction is expected to report its findings. I tell you, quick thinking in an emergency situation doesn't always happen, but boy, it is a really, really great thing when it does. Bravo to that captain. Okay, here's an interesting cop. This memory cop's face recognition skill has identified a mind-blowing 3,000 suspects, keeping streets safer. A police officer dubbed the memory cop has hit another milestone after his mind-blowing face recognition skills helped him catch his 3,000th suspect. A police community support officer, eagle-eyed Andy Pope, was praised for his incredible ability as a super recognizer with a reputation for spotting crime suspects. The 47-year-old remembers faces of wanted men and women, which has led to him picking out his 3,000th suspect for West Midlands Police in England while on patrol earlier this year. Pope can spot suspects in crowded places and on super grainy CCTV footage, and was even able to identify some while they were wearing face masks during the pandemic. He identified a robber from a picture he'd seen a year earlier and another by the mole on their face. I'm just glad I can assist in catching crime suspects and keeping communities safe, said Officer Pope. It's really hard to explain how I managed to remember and spot faces as it comes natural. Pardon me. And on that news note, let's take a short commercial break and we'll be right back. You're watching The Good News on the New Thought Media Network.
New Thought Media Network proudly presents It's All Love, Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Mountain Time, 6 p.m. Eastern, with Laura Mock as the Presence of Love, Maria Hartman, Knowing Truth, Wendy Wilson as the Quality of Presence, and Lara Brzezinski as the Essence of Joy. It's All Love, a space where we open into the heart, tap into the soul's deep wisdom, and enter into the energy of love, truth, presence, and joy. It's All Love, Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Mountain Time, 6 p.m. Eastern.
Welcome to the Convention of the Americas 2025, Rising Together. Join us for a truly bilingual retreat experience on the shores of the beautiful Lake Chapala, Mexico. July 22nd through July 26th, 2025, at the Hotel Villa Monte Carlo in Jalisco, Mexico. Featuring Reverend Jeffrey Ryan, Dr. Jose de Lira Sosa, Reverend Dr. Kathy Ann Lewis, Reverend Dr. John Waterhouse, and Reverend Dr. David Bruner. Registration is now open, and payment plans are available. Simply visit www.conventionoftheamericas.com. Come be part of a transformative gathering with powerful presentations, workshops, networking time, and just good old relaxing and connecting. Plus, you can learn more about the science of mind and how to live this powerful philosophy in your life. Transform your life at Convention of the Americas 2025, Rising Together.
And we're back. Well, I am so grateful to be with you tonight. And I've had a cold all week, and I wasn't sure I'd make it tonight, but the last minute decided, sure, I can do this. So please excuse any little cough breaks. All right, moving right along on the New Thought Media Network. Needles 1,000 times thinner than a hair to replace painful cancer biopsies. How cool is that? They render obsolete the traditional methods of diagnosing diseases. The patches containing tens of millions of nanoneedles offer a painless and less invasive alternative for millions of patients worldwide who undergo the common biopsy in order to confirm or monitor diseases, including cancer and Alzheimer's. Pardon me. But traditional biopsies can cause complications, and the pain can deter patients from seeking early diagnosis or follow up tests. They also remove small pieces of tissue, which limits how often and how comprehensively doctors can analyze disease organs. Now, scientists at King's College London have developed a nanoneedle patch that painlessly collects molecular information from tissues without removing or damaging them. They say it could allow healthcare teams to monitor disease in real time and perform multiple repeatable tests from the same area, something impossible with current biopsies. Man, that is great news for anybody who has to go in and get a biopsy. What a joy! What a joy. Dad golfer wins the US Open at 150 to 1 odds after running to get medicine for his sick daughter. Wow. It was perhaps the biggest day of his sporting life, and JJ Spawn had to wake up early to get medicine after his daughter started vomiting at 3 a.m. But his performance at the US Open ultimately did not suffer. After 3 days of competition, Spawn was only one shot behind the leader heading into the final round. It was Father's Day and his tea time would arrive soon, but Spawn first had to run out to get medicine from CVS for his sick daughter. But thanks to a masterful final stretch of play, including a 65-foot putt on the last hole, that is amazing. He got the win too, capturing the 125th U.S. Open Championship at Oakmont Country Club near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He says it was kind of a rough start to the morning. And he says, I'm not blaming that on my start. He bogeyed 5 of the first 6 holes, but it just kind of fit the mold of what was going on, the chaos. In the end, the California resident made magic happen by winning the US Open. That's no small feat. Good job. Wow. 150 to 1 odds. Whew. Boy, if you're a gambling person and you bet on him, you might have done really, really well. Extremely well. All right. Hero rescue dog detects a stranger's oncoming seizure and won't leave his side. At an adoption meet and greet event hosted by an animal rescue, a shelter dog performed an extraordinary act of diagnosis without even being trained to do so. Between 4 and 5 years of age, from unknown breeding, Sienna broke away from the crowd of dogs, appreciative attendees, and familiar caretakers walking right up to a man at a slight distance from center of the event. She sat down, looked at him in the eye, put her paw on his leg, and refused to leave his side. She sat quietly at his feet, refused to budge, and softly placed her paw on his leg. The shelter called Friends of Campbell County Animal Control. It wasn't a trick. It wasn't prompted. It was pure intuition. She then started pawing at his leg, despite never receiving training on how to detect medical emergencies. Sienna knew something was wrong. The intuition proved correct. Moments later, the shelter wrote, the man's wife approached and gasped, my husband is either having a seizure or is about to have one. In the comments section of the Facebook post, the man's husband, Kristen Davis, explained that he had suffered from several myoclonic seizures that morning, but after returning home for a rest, he seemed to have recovered. Venturing out later that day was too much, it seemed, and the seizures returned, just as Sienna had predicted, something the rescue described as part of the magic and unspoken wisdom that shelter dogs carry with them. I think all dogs carry it with them. When I came home from hospital after my spinal surgery, we had about a 7-month-old pup. and a big pup, husky German Shepherd cross. And she just came up and sat beside me. She didn't jump on me. She didn't, try to, she just sat really, really close. It was almost like she was sitting guard. She was sitting very upright and proper. It was really quite sweet. Because I got to say, I was a little nervous after spinal surgery to come home to this puppy that was very, very enthusiastic, shall we say? All right, moving right along from dogs to trees. The Brooklyn Bonsai Museum celebrates 100th birthday bash with largest ever exhibition of these mini trees. They're so pretty. Oh my goodness. One of America's largest bonsai tree collections recently celebrated its centennial with the largest exhibition of these miniature trees ever held. The collection includes some wonders of the art form: Rocky Mountain juniper bonsai, 500 years of age; a Sargent juniper from Japan, thought to be over 800 years old; and a trio of bonsai which launched the collection 100 years ago, grown still in their original vases. Wow. Running through October 19th, the Brooklyn Botanic Garden in Brooklyn, New York, will offer tours to visitors to learn more about the collection, live bonsai gardening demonstrations, an outdoor display of bonsai trees next to their fully grown cousins, screenings of a restored 22-minute film from 1971 featuring the collection's first bonsai curator. There's potentially no better place in the entire Western Hemisphere for a bonsai lover than Brooklyn this summer. So if you're going to go on vacation, maybe check out Brooklyn. Go check out that bonsai. I think I might try that one day. I haven't done it, but I have a lot of plants. I do like them. Please excuse my health thing today. All right. Myth collides with history in Greece, where tiles found marked Odysseus confirm hero worship of Homer's Trojan war king. Wow. As is so often the case in Greek history, real events merge with myth. And there's no more perfect example than the island of Ithaca, renowned as the homeland of Odysseus, the hero king in Homer's epic poem, The Odyssey. Now, at an archaeological dig there, tiles bearing the name of Odysseus have been found, confirming the location of a long theorized site where followers carried out hero worship for the semi mythical king. The only character to feature prominently in both of Homer's epics and the Odyssey, Odysseus fought in the Trojan War as the king of Ithaca before embarking on a perilous journey home that took 10 years, during which he encounters terrifying monsters, temptation, and challenges. In the northern part of the real life island, at an ancient fortified settlement known colloquially as the School of Homer, an evacuation overseen by the University of Ioannina and led by Professor Lolos and Dr. Marabia, new findings that have rooted Odysseus firmly in the landscape. Situated on the eastern slopes of a town called Exogy, a large outcrop of rocks surrounded by natural springs is linked by two rock carved staircases. The outer The upper outcrop, while a large rectangular building dominates the area at the bottom of the staircase. Previous excavations had identified human activity from various ages, such as the Neolithic and Hellenistic, but Lolos and Marabia's new discoveries place the School of Homer also squarely in the Mycenaean period from 600 to 1100 BCE, the time in which the Odyssey and Iliad are set. Wow, that is quite the find. I don't know. Sounds pretty good. The things we discover when we look at history. Okay, well, did you have your morning cup of joe today? Maybe add a little cream, a little sugar. Well, black coffee is linked to a lower risk of death, provided you drink it without milk and sugar. So while you're probably not pouring your morning coffee for the long-term health benefits, coffee consumption has been linked to lower risk of mortality. But in a new observational study, researchers from Tufts University found that the association between coffee consumption and mortality risk changes with the amount of sweeteners and saturated fat added to the beverage. That makes sense. Published online in the Journal of Nutrition, the study found that consumption of 1 to 2 cups of caffeinated coffee per day was linked to a lower risk of death from all causes and death from cardiovascular disease. Compared to drinking no Java, black coffee, as well as coffee with low levels of added sugar and saturated fat, were associated with a 14% lower risk of all-cause mortality. But the same link was not observed for coffee with high amounts of sugar and saturated fat. So for all those people in Canada who drink coffee double at Tim Hortons here, time to change. And, have a cup of joe, but take it black. Well, we've got a video for you now. This Spanish tennis star. What a sweet video. Deja, you got that for us? So Carlos. So that was so cool. Carlos Alcaraz spent time with the ball kids after winning the men's final at Roland Garros. Dude just played one of the most grueling matches ever and is jumping up and down with those kids hanging on him, said another on Reddit. What a legend. The thrilling comeback victory over Jannik Sinner after losing the first 2 sets was Alcaraz's second straight French Open title. He overcame the initial deficit to win the next 3 sets. You have to keep fighting. It's a Grand Slam final. It's no time to be tired, no time to give up. The real champions are made in those situations. Well, ain't that the truth? And what a champion to spend time with the kids, playing with them and giving them something to remember for a long time to come. They do a lot of work, those ball kids. So, all right. And our final story for tonight. I thought I was feeling better today, but of course, evening comes around. All right, CRISPR used to remove extra chromosomes in lab model of Down syndrome and restore cell function. This is really remarkable news. In a laboratory model of Down syndrome, the CIR-SPR gene editing technique successfully removed the duplicate chromosome that causes the condition while also augmenting cell function and fitness and reduced biological aging. While the authors are far from ever planning a clinical trial, they note it's the first time the duplicate chromosome, called trisomy 21, has been targeted and removed. Children born with Down syndrome can achieve remarkable things, but the genetic duplication which causes it also results in a significantly earlier average age of death, 50 to 60, and an increased risk of Alzheimer's and cardiac issues. The additional trisomy 21 results in consistent metabolic overactivity, driving the production of reactive oxygen species, a natural metabolic waste product and inflammatory marker that drives the ravages of age. Using a technique called allele-specific editing, Japanese scientists from multiple universities collaborated on a study that cued the CRISPR-Cas9 enzyme to seek out the extra trisomy 21 chromosome and snip through it while leaving the rest of the cell and DNA structure intact. The study was conducted in lab-grown cells and mature skin fibroblast cells taken from a person with Down syndrome. In the study, normal cell function was observed in those which had their extra trisomy 21 removed. They reverted to typical patterns of protein manufacturing, showed better survival rates, and more fitness-promoting expression of genes. Genes tied to nervous system development became more active, while those linked to metabolism were dialed down. About 1 in 700 babies born in the US will develop the duplicate chromosome and thus Down syndrome. The life expectancy and working capacity of these children as they go through adolescence and adulthood has dramatically increased over the years, thanks to inspirational and heartwarming work from countless individuals and organizations. To put that work in perspective, back in 1900, the life expectancy of people with Down syndrome was 9 years. In 1984, it was 28 years. Wow. That has now increased twofold in the last 40 years, a feat accomplished by advancements in cardiac surgery and general health practice for Downs in and out of the hospital. However, according to the Adult Down Syndrome Center, that progress was significantly leveled off, driven by a strong risk of Alzheimer's and dementia in Down syndrome patients as they reach late middle age. Another statistic worth noting is that over a period in which the population of the US doubled, the population living with Downs quadrupled. Despite trisomy 21's role in Downs being identified more than 50 years ago, indicating that drivers of the duplication may be proliferating throughout society. Undoubtedly and understandably, however, parents of Downs children will feel upset by the notion that a cure is being developed to treat a condition which they themselves do not see as a disease. The team from Japan stressed that the findings do not indicate a direct path toward a therapy, but that the method should be tested in more studies. Some cells, for example, don't divide. But this could be very good news for many, many parents. To come. All right. Well, please forgive me for tonight. You've been watching the good news here on the New Thought Media Network. And we are here every Friday at 5 o'clock Mountain, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, which is where I am. And I'm Barbara Jean, your host. I'll be back here again next week with more good news from the Good News Network, sunny skies, and who knows where else, wherever we can find good news. I hope you have a most wonderful and warm weekend now that summer has arrived. Yay, summer! Woo! I guess this is my summer cold. Anyway, have a wonderful, beautiful week. Know that you are loved. Mwah. You are a blessing. See you next time.
New Thought Media Network proudly presents the Global Heart of Peace's Peace Party. Celebrate the many paths to peace. Explore an exciting life of peace. Embody joyous peace. Come to our weekly Peace Party, Mondays at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. Only on New Thought Media Network. www.ntmedia.org